welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at downloading SVGs and how to work with them with Canvas. So if we go to free SVGs on Creative Fabrica, so this is in the freebies section, we can see some nice free downloads that we can download and play with. Now, one of the things I got asked about doing was scrapbooking, so let's find something that we can use as the start of a scrapbook page. Now, I think the dinosaur could work quite well. That could be quite fun. One thing to note with free files is you do want to check that there's no glitches as to why they're free. So sometimes you can notice with free files there's like a typo or something, and when you're learning, that kind of thing can kind of put you off creating, and we don't want that to happen. So when you've got your SVG, we're going to go download. It's going to pop into our downloads. So when you download a SVG kit, normally it will come in as a zip file, which you then have to extract. So on Windows, you're going to find that you're going to be able to do this within the operating system itself, but it is a manual process. You need to tell it to unzip. On a modern Mac, what you're going to find is it's going to do it for you, and then you're going to have something that goes in your recycle bin, which is the zip file, and the unzip file will remain in your downloads folder. Within that downloads folder, you are going to have several different versions of the same file. So we have a DXF, an SVG, a PNG, and an EPS in this case. And usually you'll find that one's colour, one's black and white for each file type. Okay, the ones that we're interested in are the DXF and the SVG, because those we can use with Canvas. The PNG we can use with image tracing if we want to, but what I would say is if there's an SVG file, always use that. Now, Windows users, when you have the SVG and you check at the end here it says SVG, then that's the file. But in Kind, you'll often find that it comes up saying something like Microsoft Edge HTML document, and it's not. It's just that it's an SVG. That's because SVGs were originally created for the web. So they're kind of like a mini web page, if you kind of think of it in that sense. Okay, so once we have our files, we're going to go to Canvas. And we have the SVG button just here, and it says import from your computer. You can also go up to File and then go import from your computer, and you can go through that way and bring in the SVG file as well. So click the SVG button. We can then go to Downloads, which is in our favourites. There's our folder with our file that we've downloaded. And then we can choose which version of the file we want to work with. So you can see that PNG version is there that we can import. Now, yours may not necessarily allow you to import that PNG. If you have the Print to Cut add-on, you're going to find it's going to let you bring in PNG images this way. It's kind of a option for Print to Cut. I'm just going to bring in the black version SVG and go open. Now, sometimes you might get a message saying that it's too big for the mat. If you have the light blue vinyl blade, you can actually quit bringing it in, go to custom size for tiling. It's going to give you a much bigger mat. Then go back to SVG and bring it in again, and you'll have much larger space to work with. Okay, let's go back to our normal mat. And you can see that each of these bits is a separate shape. So in your layers, you can see that they're all there. Now, when we have a object like this, it's actually quite fun to split it across 2 mats. So how can we do that? First of all, let's take our object and we're going to group all of our layers. The reason that we're going to do that group initially is so that we size everything at the same proportion. Otherwise it can end up looking a bit weird. I'm going to be mindful of this top edge here and the bottom edge here. So, because we don't want to cut off the tail. And we can go, okay, let's bring that over there. Okay. Now, I'm going to ungroup. So that's Command-Shift-G on a Mac or Control-Shift-G on a PC. So it's ungrouped. And this is more or less in the right place for our left-hand page. For our right-hand page, however, we've got a little bit of an issue with the tail. So I wanted to show you a way that we can kind of fix that. I'm going to go to Basic Shapes. I'm going to pick, let's go for a rectangle. Scroll across. And I'm going to size that down so that it is nice and thin. I'm going to rotate it and hold shift when rotating and you're going to get it locked to 90 degrees. I'm going to move that so it sits on the edge of my page. I'm going to press and hold shift and click the tail section. Okay, so you should see in layers that you have these 2 layers selected. I'm going to go to edit, scroll down to process overlap and go subtract. So we've essentially put a cut in the tail here. If we go back into our shape, you can see that actually, although we've cut through that shape, it's still got it as one shape. Go back to edit and divide. And that's going to split up the shapes into sections. Go back to layers, we can now see that we have 2 shapes, one with a tail and one with the rest of the body. Okay, so now I can click and drag over the top and group the first mat. So let's call this left mat and hit enter. And I'm going to group these other 2 sections and call it right mat and hit enter. So now we can take that group and if we just move it across here, we have no idea if we're keeping those 2 bits level or not. So I'm just going to undo that a moment. Select that shape and if we use the shift key, it's going to lock it to the horizontal line. We can take it so that it's just inside our red line, like so. And then we can cut those from 2 different papers and have everything line up. Now what I'd recommend is in terms of actually cutting these out, cut out the negative shape. So what do I mean? If I hide one of these. So you've got a 12 by 12 piece of paper that you're attaching to your mat. When it cuts, it's going to cut out this design. Rather than using this shape in here, we're going to use the paper from around the outside, so that way we're not having to worry about lining up this tail or lining up the body, because it's quite a complex shape to try and line up. There is no distinct straight line that you can follow. So by cutting in the negative, we can then pop our colour underneath, and all we have to worry about sticking in is the centre for the D and the O, and on the other side we've got the two parts of the A and the centre of the R, and then this shape here where the tail attaches. So that's just something to bear in mind, that we can use the positive, but we can also use the negative as well. So it's a good way if you then want to go and stick that dinosaur onto a different project. So you might stick it on the cover instead and things like that. So there's something to bear in mind. And with that, we can then save that as usual. So I can actually save that back to my downloads folder or into the folder where I got that SVG from. So I can call it dinosaur 12 by 12 double page layout, like so, and we'll go save. Now at the moment that is a Canvas workspace project file, so it has the ending tag as CWPRJ. That's great for having all this information where we've got groups, we've got labelled with what it's doing, whether it's cut or drawn, if it's visible or invisible. That is all the information that is saved within the project file. However, when it comes to the FCM, which is what we need for our machine to be able to understand the file, we have to go and we can go export transfer FCM file. And it's going to throw up an issue because we've got our left mat still hidden. That's fine. We can go OK. We can go to export FCM file. So even if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can follow on with this exactly how I'm doing it. And the page that we're looking at the moment is the right page. So we can go right page and save. We can hide that right mat, reveal the left mat, and we can do the same again. So file, export, OK. Then export FCM file, and this time we can say left page. And then we've got those two FCM files. If you're doing it over Wi-Fi, you would just use the Wi-Fi option instead. But I've shown that's lots and lots on videos, whereas I don't always tend to show that step of exporting the FCM. Benefits of saving that FCM as a distinct file from the CWPRJ is that at any point you don't have to go back into Canvas to cut the project. You just have the FCM file ready to just go, okay, I'll cut that. So it's useful for things that you're going to want to cut multiple times. In terms of your file storage, however, you don't want to leave things in your downloads folder. So if I go back to Finder, at the moment, this and even our CWPRJ file and our two FCM files are loitering in our downloads folder. Now, if your hard drive fails, there is almost certainly no backup of this folder. See, instead, you want to set it up that you are using something like Dropbox or some other virtual cloud storage to do your backup for your files, as well as the option of having a separate dedicated hard drive. So you can get hard drives that will plug into your USB socket, same way as memory stick would, but you're going to have that extra space over memory stick to be able to put lots of files. And we can actually set that up so that it's called mirroring it, which is where you place a copy up on the cloud and just keep that data safe, because there's nothing worse than losing everything that you've purchased, downloaded, and sometimes, especially free downloads, you can never get those things back. So it's always worth having a backup and making sure that you're looking after these files. Okay, so thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.